We looked at chapter 1, and how far did we get exactly? Did we finish chapter 1? Okay. Can we establish a couple of things as we come into chapter 2, because we're still in this first section, which is 8 night visions. The first of the visions established that an unseen world exists, that the two worlds have intersecting points. What is an intersecting point of the angelic world with the human material world? One is patrolling the other. So there is an intersection. One is watching the other. Third, many, 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 many things that appear in the physical world have causes from the immaterial world. In other words, you see the effect, not the cause. You don't always know why something happens. Many causes are hidden and effects are seen. The last thing I think that we established as we walked through chapter 1 is that God is working a plan and that there's a battle going on. They're patrolling a battle line. It is not peaceful and quiet all the time. It was that night. And so he was able to say, that night I get it. Okay. So the world was quiet, right? No way. The world was self-satisfied. He wasn't saying all is quiet. He's saying that peace was that they were satisfied with where they were. Now, what I want you to do is take a moment, and we're going to drop into chapter 2, but as you get into chapter 2, I want you to see the next phase of this nighttime vision. Now, it begins with a series of declarations of the Lord. The portion of God's people is determined by God's plan and God's promises. The portion, meaning the inheritance, the part you get in chapter 2, is determined by God's plan and God's promises. He's the one who initiates a relationship and blesses many just through him. His plan was determined in his mind, and then it plays out in history. You have to understand how this works, or the rest of what I'm going to say is going to sound like spooky nonsense. God starts with a thought, and that's what history is made from. And the complications and layers of that thought are beyond your grasp. Because right now, God's thought includes every being that exists, everyone that is still in sperm and egg form, everyone that has ever been, every molecule, every atom, all of that is part of his ongoing plan all at one time. And you say, wow, that's just impossible. Yes, and 100 years ago, things that were heavier than air couldn't fly, except for we fly in them all the time. We change what we understand by reposing the question. Imagine that you have a very fast computer. Imagine that, because most of you probably don't. Imagine it's working at a reasonably good speed. It is already doing millions of calculations. The ones that God has to have are 1 quadrillion times that in order to do all the things at one time. Even in you right now, you don't know what's happening. You are very complicated. Yesterday, NPR was running a radio program about elderly people in Japan, and you probably know this, but Japan is very resistant to allowing others to come into their culture, so they have only 1.8% of foreigners in Japan. Well, the problem is they're having fewer and fewer kids, and the population is getting older and older, which means there aren't that many people to take care of the elderly and aging population. So, of course, they turn to robotics. And we have been 20 years from having a robot that works for the last 50 years. In other words, we can't get it right. And this robotics expert comes on, and they translate him from Japanese, and he said, what people really want is a son or daughter. That's really complicated to build. And I thought, that's an insightful statement. Because honestly, we don't realize how complicated it is that we can touch you gently but not harm you. That we know where to stop. That we can respond. And we learn those things. I want you to look at chapter 2, and let me give you a summary of the first 13 verses, and then we'll come and look at them. Here's my summary. When an angel went to measure restored Jerusalem, I heard angels passing the word of the Lord. And Jerusalem will be enlarged and beyond walls, and I'll protect her. I will bring them back from where I scattered them. I will again dwell in their midst. Rejoice! Many other nations will join themselves to her, and the Lord will renew Jerusalem. That's my Randy reading in the white spaces version of the first 13 verses. In other words, good stuff's about to happen for Jerusalem. Verse 1, then I lifted up my eyes and looked. There was a man with a measuring line in his hand. Where are you going? He said to me, to measure Jerusalem, to see how wide it is and how long it is. And behold, the angel who was speaking with him was going out, and another angel was coming out to meet him and said, run, speak to that young man, saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited without walls because of the multitude of the men and cattle with it. Do you see what just happened? This is a very cool thing. You have to see what just happened. He pulls back the curtain. He's watching these angels. And an angel comes by with a measuring line. He says, what are you doing? He says, I got to go measure Jerusalem. And off he goes. And another angel runs up and says, you got to stop him. You got to tell him it's not in the walled cities. He's got to go much bigger than that. They're running around behind the scenes like you getting ready for a picnic with 3 of your friends. And what are they doing? Measuring the future of Jerusalem before it's there. And he's saying, oh no, it's going to be a lot bigger than the walls. Go stop him. That angel over there? Yeah, he's got the wrong tool. Get him over here. That's what's going on in the background. So if you're thinking, you know, it's one of these, here's the Yahoo church team, but here's the angels, and they're walking along, and they're all doing it, and they're all doing it perfectly. No, they look like us. Get him back here. He's got the wrong tools. That's what the angelic world looks like. Now, I'm not trying to rob you of all of your great fantasies of how it's all just perfect, but in the immaterial world, they're struggling to get their act together. I think that's helpful. I think it's real. Now, watch what happens. For I, declares the Lord, will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be her glory in her midst. He's under the impression that she will only be as big as the walled city. No, it's going to be a lot bigger because God's going to be their wall. I'm going to put a ring of fire around them, and that ring of fire is going to be the thing that protects them, and nobody's going to be able to see it, but I do, and you guys will. The immaterial world sees God's hand of protection as God's hand of protection. We just sort of talk about it like it's there, but they see it. So here's what it says, verse 7. Ho, Zion, escape, you who are living with the daughter of Babylon. For thus says the Lord of hosts, after glory he has sent me again against the nations which plunder you, and he who touches you touches the apple of his eye. Underline that one. God calls Jerusalem and the Jewish people the apple of his eye. As you get out in the world and you begin to listen to the way that people talk about that people, just remember when you stick the finger in the apple of God's eye, you are going to, that's the iris. The apple of the eye. When you stick your finger in God's iris, he's going to bite you. He's going to smack you down. For behold, I will wave my hand over them so that they will be plunder for their slaves. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me. Sing for joy, be glad, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming, and I will dwell in your midst, declares the Lord. Many nations will join themselves to the Lord in that day, and will become my people. And then I will dwell in your midst, and you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you. The Lord will possess Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and will again choose Jerusalem. Be silent, all flesh, before the Lord, for he is aroused from his holy habitation. What's that all about? God says, I'm going to make Jerusalem big. It's going to go well beyond the walls. I'm going to protect it. The nations are going to see it. They're going to understand that I have done this and I have spoken it and it will happen. It's going to be exactly as I say it will be. So when you walk away from this, what do you take away from it? Well, you take away from it a couple of things that there's no place else in the Bible where you see angels fumbling the ball. Here it is. Okay, please understand, lack of sin does not mean great organization. Just because they're not sinning doesn't mean they got their act together. Am I bothering you? The angels struggle. It's not easy for them. They have to be comforted. God has to speak into their life. They don't always know where they're going. They don't always have it together, and they're above us. So what are the chances we're going to get it all right? Okay? Now, I know it's kind of weird, but this is the declaration of the Lord. When I speak, it happens. But that doesn't mean that the angels, even when they're trying to pull it off, aren't fighting over how to get it done. Now, let's go to the next chapter, because he opens up with the next statement. Here's a principle. An enemy is fighting against God's plan. This is a principle of war. The enemy is fighting against God's plan. And in verses 3, 1 through 10, I'm still in the middle of these 8-night visions. And in the next section of this vision, it says that the enemy of God's plan for his people is the world, the flesh, and the devil. And they're all very real, and they all take a toll on the lives. But we have to be able to understand that each of them is different. You are not fighting one enemy, you're fighting three. World, flesh, and devil. When I say world, I'll define that later in 1 John as the fallen world system. It doesn't mean you're fighting every worldly person. You're not. Many of them are not bothered by you at all. But the world system is designed to cause you to do things on your own, independent of God or away from God. Left to yourself, growing in the system that has been prepared by a fallen world, you will not end up holy, righteous, or dependent upon God. That's not going to happen. Now, that's the world. By the way, what's the strategy used for the world? Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. In other words, don't admire what leads you in the wrong direction. Don't stare down the road that leads you away from God and go, doesn't that look good? Because that's what Eve did at the beginning. Before you sin, you think about it. You start going, well, that sounds like, wouldn't it be cool? Watch how many movies the person who's living an immoral life appears to be the one who's having fun. Watch how many movies the rebel, the young rebel, appears to be the one who's so cool. And the one who's obedient and loving and compassionate and kind seems to be such a dweeb. Watch how many times it happens. You know why? That's the fallen world speaking through Hollywood in a megaphone. Come and do what's wrong. And it'll all work out because it's working so well for us. And those same actors that make it look so good will go home and their lives will fall apart. And they will marry and divorce 6 times and burn through money and burn through relationships. And those are the actors from whom we are all getting our lessons. The world. So what's your strategy? Don't love it, don't admire it, block its influence in your life. What Satan would like you to do is, long before you fall into a pattern of sin, sing about it and laugh at it. Make it your favorite song. Make it your favorite comedian. Everything that you would normally repel because it's so anti-God, laugh at it first. Because if I can win you by entertainment, I can slowly win the battleground of your mind. That's world. Flesh. What's flesh? How do you fight flesh? What's the issue of flesh?
Like your natural go-to desire to sin.
Yeah, I use the term default switch. My default switch will always be, as a broken, fallen individual, even though the Spirit of God is working hard to shout over my default switch will always be egotistical, self-oriented, proud, arrogant, self-reliant, independent. Get off my foot. Get out of my way, you old lady. What's your problem? That it will come out very quickly. My flesh is, I can do this without God. And that's the default switch we all have. If given the choice of surrender or being proactive, the world will tell us to be proactive. And even when they stop, we still have a default switch that says, I'm going to be proactive. I can do this. Instead of stopping and asking God, we will tell God, here's my plan for my life, now bless it. So in flesh, what is the method you use? If world is about blocking influence, what is the flesh method? What's the method of dealing with your flesh? To some extent, let me use a different word rather than starve, to discipline it, to control it. The reason Paul said, I buffet my body, that's not buffet, by the way. The reason he said, I buffet my body is because what he was trying to say is, I force the flesh to serve the spirit, not the other way around. We live in a world that would rather start from the emotion. This is how I feel, so this must be what I need to do. The most important faculties of an American life are selected largely on feeling. I saw the ad, I love the smell of the car, I will look great in it, everyone will look. Not, it's a good car. We won't check it's a good car. Given a really good car and a really not good car with a better smell and better commercial, we will buy the worst car. We will buy the one with the good commercial. Americans spend 80% of their time and energy putting together the promotion and 20% putting together the product. In other words, it may not work, but boy, did we sell it well. It may be a cup of sugar in this drink, and it will kill you, okay? But boy, do we sell it well. This burger may have no meat in it, but boy, do we sell it well. And that's really how we do it. So, what do? You curb the influence of the flesh by disciplining it and making it serve you. Whoever told you have to feel good all the time? Who told you that? That's not true. Whoever told you can? That's not true, okay? Okay, now, this one moves to the third realm. World, flesh, third one, devil. And by that, I mean immaterial world and its influence on you, not the devil. Lucifer may not know my name. I dare not elevate myself to such a level. I doubt I'm doing anything that serious that he's going, wow, I got to stop that guy. But he does know some names. And what I can tell you is this, there's an entire immaterial world system out there. Now, when I open this up, look at verse 1, chapter 3, verse 1, because this is one of the neatest passages I've found in dealing with a discouraged friend. Watch this. He says, then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. The Lord said to Satan, the Lord rebuke you, Satan. Indeed, the Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is this not a brand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and standing before the angel. He spoke and he said to him, again, see, I have taken away your iniquity. Remove the filthy garments from him. I have taken away the iniquity from you and will clothe you with festal robes, nice clean white robes. Then I said, let them put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments, while the angel of the Lord was standing by. And the angel of the Lord admonished Joshua, saying, thus says the Lord of hosts, if you will walk in my ways and if you will perform my service, then you also will govern my house and also have charge in my courts, and I will grant you free access among those who are standing here. Now listen, Joshua the high priest, you and your friends who are sitting in front of you, indeed, they are men who are a symbol, for behold, I am going to bring in my servant, the branch. Behold, the stone that I have set before Joshua, on one stone there are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, every one of you will invite his neighbor to sit under his vine and under his fig tree. What is that about? Here's what happened. Joshua was the high priest, and he was supposed to be running the new temple. So we told you that coming back in 539, Cyrus decreed for the Jews to come back. In 536, they did. By 520, they had stalled out. Haggai comes and he starts saying, let's get on it, let's get on it. Joshua is the high priest who is discouraged about the work of the temple. He's presiding over a group of people that bailed out on him. Have you ever gotten a team together of volunteers and they bailed on you at the last minute? That was Josh's problem. So he's standing there going, man, I can't get anything done. These guys, they sign up to do this and they never show up. The guy who was supposed to bring the Kool-Aid didn't come. Everybody else is choking and thirsty. I'm running around trying to find drinks. Joshua's program was falling apart. Now, in the flesh, it looked like he was disturbed, disrupted, and discouraged. But that's not what was going on. Now, enter Zach, and he pulls back the curtain. And what does he see? Satan is standing next to him, lobbing dirt bombs on him. You're no good. You can't do this. You shouldn't even be high priest. Don't you remember what you thought yesterday? And he's standing there dirty. In the material world, he looked discouraged. In the spiritual world, he was getting attacked. And without Zechariah being able to see it, you never would have known it. You might sit down with a young person and try to counsel them, and you're trying to say, why can't they see it? They're beautiful. They think they're ugly. They're not. You don't know what the level of attack they're under is. In the immaterial world, there are things happening that play out in the physical world. So Nick walks in, and he's having what looks like a bad day. He's kind of, have you ever had the situation where you're just, things bug you and they normally don't, but like that day they do? It's not all what it appears to be. Maybe you didn't sleep enough. Maybe, eat more spinach. I don't know, but maybe it's none of those things. Maybe you did everything you needed to do, but this isn't you. There's a war going on. And Ephesians tells you that you're to armor up for this war in Ephesians 6:10 through 20, and you're supposed to put that armor on. But why do you need armor on? Because there's a war going on. You're getting shot at. And we walk through our Christian life and experience like everybody's going to be happy and we're just going to have a great praise time. There's a war going on. You were born again into the middle of a war. And when you peel back the curtain, you would be terrified if you saw what was going on. So here's what he saw. He saw a guy who was standing there in a dirty costume. And God said, that's not who you are. Clean that boy up. Get him a clean costume. I got stuff I want you to do. I am planning on bringing Messiah into this world. I want him to drop into a temple. I want you to be ready. I need you to get up and get going. Now, what's interesting is, I don't think Joshua ever saw any of that. Don't just pray that you can help your friend. Pray that you'll have the spiritual insight to be able to see for your friend what your friend can't see. I don't think you need to see like dirty costumes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sometimes what they need is more than just encouragement like, come on, you can do it. You're really good. Sometimes what they need, honestly, is real prayer, real forethought. God has called you to do this. Let me give you an example of this. How do you know God called you to do something? Well, if you're a mom, God called you to be one. And on Tuesday, when the kids are bad, God still called you to be one. So what do you do to encourage that woman who's sitting there with her hair like this and kids running around and stuff being thrown, and she's like, it might not just be what it is. She needs more than that. Listen to me, you're shaping a life. You are changing and molding and shaping these children to be the next generation of God's people. I need you to see bigger than you see, because what you're seeing is the marker they just drew all over the front of the dishwasher. What you're not seeing is you're shaping a life. I love in this simple story that God peeled back the curtain. Now, go down to the next chapter. What do you see in chapter 4? Chapter 4, verses 1 to 14. God's going to empower workers to complete work that's beyond their capability. That's what you're supposed to see here. Watch this. The angel who was speaking with me returned and roused me as a man who was awakened from a sleep. Okay, so Zechariah, he loves looking into the other world, but sometimes he just ends up kind of going, and so he's kind of staring off and falling asleep. I won't even mention names, but several of you are doing it. Verse 2, he said to me, what do you see? I said, I see and behold a lampstand, all of gold with its bowl on top of it and 7 lampstands on it with 7 sprouts belonging to each of the lamps which are on top of it. Also 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl and the other on the left side. So he sees this big menorah, the 7-branched lampstand, and he sees 2 olive trees on either side. That's kind of weird because generally the menorah is in the temple and the olive trees are outside the temple. But what does the menorah burn? Olive oil. So you got these olive trees that produce ostensibly olives that produce olive oil, and you have this lamp that's burning it. So if this was electricity, it'd be like having 2 generators and an electric lamp. So he's looking at it. And he says, then I said to the angel who was speaking with me, what are these, my Lord? Not what are they, but what are they? Like, I know that they're trees. I know that there's a lamp. What does this mean? Like, I see things in the spiritual world, but I can't interpret what they are. So the angel who was speaking with me answered and said, do you not know what these are? Don't you love that? Because this is what you need. You need a sarcastic angel in your life. If I knew what they were, would I have asked you what they were? Okay? So the angel's going like, you don't get this? Here's what I want you to understand. Angels don't get you. They don't understand you. You ask questions and they go, what are you talking about? You didn't get that? You seriously didn't get that? I need you to understand, when Zechariah said to Gabriel, how will I know what God just said from your mouth is true? He was like, I work for God. What are you, an idiot? Of course it's true. I work for God. He doesn't know why you don't get it. Because he can see the immaterial world and the material world. You can't see his world. But he doesn't know what you don't know. There's a lot of other stuff we could say about angels, but one of the things you need to know is they are fascinated by you. Sexuality fascinates them. You know why? Because it's not part of who they are. And you always are fascinated by what the other guy gets to do. So they're very fascinated by that. That's another passage. But let me stay here. It says, do you not know what these are? I said, no, my Lord. And it's what he doesn't say is, and I wanted to smack him. Verse 6, then he said to me, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, saying, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Okay, how does a lamp with two trees equal not by might, not by power, but by my spirit? Because the oil that empowers the lamp is the move of the Spirit of God. What he's doing is he's saying, you see the mechanics of it, but you don't see the point, the principle behind it, which is I'm the God that grows the fruit on the tree that produces the oil that makes the lamp. I have a process I'm working, and it's a process of the Spirit of God, and that's what's going to empower what you're doing. It's not by power, it's not by might, it's by a process, a spiritual process of the Spirit of God. He says, what are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you will become a plain, and he will bring forth the top stone with shouts of grace, grace to it. Also, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands will finish it. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small things? That's, by the way, underlined at the beginning of verse 10, because that's one of the most famous statements of the book. Who has despised the day of small things? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of the Lord, which range to and fro throughout the earth. Then I said to him, what are these 2 olive trees on the right of the lampstand and on its left? And I answered the second time and said to him, what are the 2 olive branches which are on the 2 golden pipes, which empty golden oil from themselves? And he answered me, do you not know what these are? I said, no, my Lord. Then he said, they are the 2 anointed ones who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. He said, let me just show you how I'm going to do something. I'm going to put a guy, and he's got a job. Zerubbabel's job is to finish this temple that I gave him, but he can't do it alone. So by the power of the Spirit, I'm going to put 2 guys on either side of him, and I'm going to help them flow through the Spirit of God and encourage him, and he's going to get it done. Part of this whole thing was, listen to me, Zechariah, your job is to keep Joshua propped up and encouraged because he's getting beat up and there's nobody standing with him, and you need to stand with him. Zerubbabel on one side, Zechariah on the other side, Joshua doing what God has called him to do, and each of them, Zerubbabel will finish that temple, Joshua will be a clean priest, and you will be my prophet, and the 3 of you will be used of me to get it done. I have a team. You're on the team. You got to do your job, and you got to know that your job includes doing things in the spiritual world. You got to get on your knees, and you got to be a part of that team. Things that happen in the physical world happen as a response to what's going on in the spiritual world. You will never be a missionary that is effective if you do not understand that. The prayer team is on the field with you. They are on their knees back home, but they are actually making it happen with you. You will go out and you will give your best to the work, and it will not happen. Why? Because your prayer team's not doing their job. You're going to run out of flesh, and you're going to hit a wall because the prayer team's not doing their job. This is a story of 3 men, each of them 2 trees on either side, the flowing of the Spirit from those trees into this lamp. The lamp will build the temple, but the 2 trees will feed it what it needs in encouragement and what it needs in the Spirit. And by the way, the temptation of the lamp will be to say, but it's so small what we're doing. Okay, stop next to chapter 4 and make a note if you're not sure of it. The people that are in ministry will constantly be discouraged into thinking that the ministry they're in is less important than the one down the street. It will always happen. There will always be one down the street. Always. And when the enemy wants to get at your friend, right in the midst of doing their work, he's going to raise their eyes up to the Madison Avenue, but you're not nearly as important as you would be if you were on this stage or in this platform. Why don't you move from this place to that place? And instead of people standing by and encouraging them to be what God called them to be, we got guys who are making 18 months in a ministry and then moving to the next ministry and making 18 months there and moving to the next ministry and 18 months there and moving to the next. They're running after something that isn't there. Instead of building what God called them to do, they're running around trying to find it. They got a group of people in their mind that they want to attract, and they don't want the people that are out in front of them, because the people out in front of them have all these problems. They want these really idyllic ones that are so cool that don't have all those problems. And that's what chapter 4 is about. Zerubbabel is getting beat up. Joshua is getting beat up. Zechariah is able to see into the spiritual world, and he gets the final conclusion. Guess what? Guys, it looks like we're discouraged and tired out. We're really not. Our troops are not too tired to show up for work. That's not the problem. We're under attack. That's the problem. So we're going to have to stand together and make this work. And we're going to have to understand that it's not the flesh and the power and the might. It is the Spirit of God that's going to make this work. So I know that these are a little bit cryptic, but do you see where it's going? Go to chapter 5. At the beginning of chapter 5, there's a flying scroll. If this isn't weird enough for you, now scrolls are flying through the room. Hang in there, because this gets better. Okay? Now, let me just summarize verses 1 to 4. A huge flying scroll, 15 by 30 feet, which contained judgment against thieves and hypocrites, flew by. Now, this is not a magic carpet, it's a magic scroll. But it's 15 by 30, so it might as well be a written-on carpet, okay? Thing goes dee-dee-dee-dee, flying right through, and this is weird. Can we all agree it's weird? It's after lunch. Lighten up. I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a flying scroll. And I thought to myself, that's weird. Then I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, there was a flying scroll. And I thought to myself, hey, that's a flying scroll. That's a little strange. And he said to me, what do you see? And I said, well, I see a flying scroll. Its length is 20 cubits. This is a cubit, so that's, of course, 30 feet. And its width is 10 cubits, and this is a cubit, so that's 15 feet. And he said to me, this is a curse. A law is an oath. It's not the word curse, it's the word oath. This is a sworn oath that is going forth over the face of the whole land. Surely everyone who steals will be purged away according to the writing on one side, and everyone who swears will be purged away according to the writing on the other side. I will make it go forth, declares the Lord of hosts, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely by my name, and it will spend the night within that house and consume its timbers and stones. He says, I got this big scroll with my curse, my oath, my sworn covenant that I will stop people from doing what they're doing wrong. And I'm going to swoop into their house, and I'm going to park myself there with my word, and my word is just going to sit in their house, and their house is going to catch fire and burn. Why? Because I'm serious. I need Jerusalem to get cleaned up, and I need you guys to understand what I'm doing. There's going to be a fire. People's houses are going to get wiped out. You're going to think, gee, that's bad. Has the Lord turned his face from us? No, I started the fire. I'm the one who's doing it. So when you see bad things happen, and they happen over there, guess what? That was me. Why? Because those people were lying and cheating and you didn't know it. I'm defending you by getting people out of the way who are doing things you can't see. Because you're working hard at a ministry and this guy's over here cheating on his wife. And that guy's over there pilfering money. And I'm going to burn it down so that I can get them out, so I can get you cleaned up, so I can get this job done. Now this is weird, isn't it? But God is working on your defense in ways you can't see. He is moving for ministries. Remember, if you are for him, he is for you. And he says, look, I need you to understand something. I'm on your side here. I'm doing something. Now, then there's a statement of sovereignty that comes up in verse 5 through 11. And this is another one of these weird things. The angel who was speaking with me went out and said, lift up your eyes right now and see what it is that's going forth. I said, what is it? He said, this is an ephah going forth. Again, he said, this is their appearance in all the land. And behold, a lead cover was lifted up. And there was a woman sitting inside the jar. And he said, this one, she's called wickedness. And he threw her down in the middle of the jar and cast the lead weight on its opening. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and there 2 women were coming out with the wind in their wings. And they had wings like the wings of a stork. And they lifted up this jar, this ephah jar, between the earth and the heavens. And I said to the angel who was speaking with me, where are they taking this jar? And he said to me, to build a temple for her in the land of Shinar. And when it is prepared, she will be set there on her own pedestal. This is some kind of false, wicked, evil religion being born right in front of him. That in the demonic world, the angel says, see this right here? That's going to be a religion. And it's going to be some kind of religion around this woman. In a couple of weeks, I'm flying to Madrid. And in the downtown of Madrid, Spain, the central square has a beautiful fountain. The fountain is of a sibyl. A sibyl was like an oracle, a woman. If I were to travel to Paris, I would find another sibyl. If I go to Rome, I can find yet another one. In the Sistine Chapel, where God is touching the finger of Adam, on the sides are sibyls. She shows up everywhere. I can take you to fertility shrines, goddesses, one after the other. When somebody asks you, where did these false religions come from? They didn't come from Gautama sitting on a rock deciding to be the Buddha. They came from the immaterial, demonic world. How do I know? Because you just watched one. He said, this is going to be a thing. This is going to be a religion. Look at this. Look at this in the jar. And he looks down in the jar, he sees a woman. Who is that? Oh, that's evil. Right there, this is wickedness. Okay, get the jar. Down they come, up goes the jar. Where are they going? Oh, they're setting her up a temple. She's about to be a religion. That's what it looks like in the other world. In your world, it looks like somebody comes up with a philosophy, somebody rolls it into a book, somebody else makes a movie. Then it becomes, actors start believing it, then people start talking about it, and the next thing you know, 1 million people are bowing down to this woman that came from the jar. To us, it looks like people that are making decisions. To them, it looks like some kind of spiritual explosion of darkness. It really does look like that to them. Caesar's sitting there going, whoa, listen, you didn't even roll your eyes at the flying scroll, and now you're, whoa, okay, it gets better, hang in there. See, even in the propagation of false religion, God is sovereign. It happens because he lets it happen, and it stops when he says it stops. God is not on the ropes getting beat up by false religions. They end the moment he says they're done. He's sovereign. And even the wicked are subject to him. They have to go only when he allows them. Okay, By the way, there's another principle, and it's about limits. It's in chapter 6, verses 1 to 7. Look at the limits. God marshals the unseen forces to aid his people. Not only are there things going on against you that you don't know, there are things that are going on for you that you don't know. Let's see if we can see it. He sees these chariots. It says, I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming forth between the 2 mountains, and the mountains were bronze mountains. With the first chariot were red horses, with the second chariot black horses, third chariot white horses, fourth chariot had dappled horses. Then I spoke and said to the angel who was speaking with me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel said to me, these are 4 spirits of heaven going forth after standing before the Lord of all the earth, with one of which the black horses are going forth to the north country, white ones going after them, while the dappled ones go forth to the south country. When the strong ones went out, they were eager to go out to patrol the earth. And he said, go, patrol the earth. So they patrolled the earth. Then he cried out to me and spoke to me, saying, see, those who are going to the land of the north have appeased my wrath in the land of the north. What's going on here? He says, I saw these chariots and they're moving through a pass in the mountains, and an angel told me that the chariots were there to patrol the earth, and God was satisfied with the report of the angel from the north. Now, what did you get out of all that? That the angelic patrol was enacted to free up Babylonian captives and start to bring them back, appeasing God's justice. God was ready for some new people to come back, new captives to return. So he spread out angelic patrols and said, I'm okay with them, you can bring those back now. God is moving people around the earth through political waves. Right now, 1 million people on the earth are on the move in an immigration wave, but that's not what it is. It's not a war in Syria that's doing it. It's not an Arab Spring that's doing it. God is moving pieces around the puzzle. And he's got something in it. That's what's happening. And if you could see it behind the curtain, it wouldn't look like it does in CNN. It would look like it does on HNN, Heaven Network News. And it's a completely different scene. Now look at the collaboration that happens. Because God multiplies the ranks whenever it's needed. I love this. Look at verse 9. The word of the Lord also came to me, saying, take an offering from the exiles, from Helda, Tobiah, Yediah. Go to the same day and enter the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, where they have arrived from Babylon. Take silver, gold, make an ornate crown, set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Then say to him, thus says the Lord of hosts, behold a man whose name is Branch, for he will branch out from where he is, and he will build the temple of the Lord. Yes, it is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he will bear the honor and sit and rule on his throne. Thus he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between the 2 offices. Now the crown will become a reminder in the temple of the Lord to Helem, Tobiah, Yediah, and Chen, the son of Zephaniah. Those who are far off will come and build the temple of the Lord. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you, and it will take place if you completely obey the Lord your God. I want you to understand something. He says, I want you to go out, I want you to get some of these new exiles that are coming in with cash in their pocket, take up a collection. Then I want you to make this crown and put it on Joshua's head and tell him, you're going to be the guy who starts up this temple. We are going to dedicate this temple. We're going to get it rolling, and the Messiah is going to walk into this temple. And he's going to be a priest that's going to follow you, and he's going to do something great. But listen to me, you're not going to believe it. You're going to look at your bank account and go, it's empty, I can't do it, and I'm going to bring in the money. And every time you put this crown on your head, you're going to go, how did I get this? I don't even understand. How did we have the money to pay these bills? And then you're going to know when I unfold it and this thing all happens that it was me, not you. I'm going to multiply your resources by people you don't know, and you're going to know it was me, not you. You're never going to be sitting back going, boy, I have earned being priest of this temple. You don't have a temple and you're not a priest until I make you one. I will give you things you can't possibly have gotten any other way. You will not believe how much I will give you. Guys, do you know what that is? This is an incredible promise that if you'll obey me and follow me, Joshua, I'll multiply your resources and bring stuff into your life that you can't believe. I've been saying this to you all year. I've been saying this to you all year. I know it's after lunch and you're tired. I've been saying this to you all year. You commit your way to the Lord will direct your paths and he'll give you things you can't even believe. You know how I know? I haven't had a real job in 20 years. Now, what did we see? Step back from this vision. We just went running through some of the weirdest scripture ever. Can we all agree with that? There were some, kind of pretty weird stuff in Ezekiel, but this is pretty weird. Scrolls flying through the room, ladies in a bottle, okay? We saw that there's an unseen world that exists, that the two worlds have intersecting points, that there are lots of effects that we see, but we don't understand the causes. We see that God is working a plan. We see the enemy is fighting against him. We see that God raises up supplies. We see that the enemy moves, and that even the false things the enemy is doing, God is opening the doors to, and God will deal with purity in the ranks and burn down people that are going to hurt what he's doing, and that even the wicked are subjected to him, and God marshals unseen forces to aid his people and multiplies the ranks when needed, and all of that came from there. It's not a story of weird things happening. It's a story of how God works in the unseen world, and you don't get to look through that curtain often. So come back to these verses later in your life when it's not just after lunch and you're ready to hear them. Here's what I want you to know. This is a cool passage of Scripture. It's a hard one to grasp, but if you stop and think about it, God is telling you there's something going on just behind you. I got to tell you, that's a little freaky. I like to shower alone. Just the idea that there's like angels like walking through the room, I'm like, knock it off, guys. I need a little privacy in here. There's some stuff that just, I don't share my toothbrush. There's just some things that you should just be private. And at the same time, if we could see the other world, the world would look different to us.